Welcome to WILLSTAR Monsters and Mysteries, everybody. Two fishermen, East Lynn Lake in West Virginia, night fishing for catfish. All of a sudden they hear this moan howl coming from the other side, followed by another one up on the hill. Then a Bigfoot creature walks out from the tree line and gives them a huge howl, which the fishermen take as the Bigfoot warning them to get out of there. Which, guess what they did? They got out of there. If you're new to the channel, thanks for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Maybe think about subscribing. If you guys like the video, make sure you hit that like button for me. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one.
Today I have a viewer that sent in an email about an encounter with Bigfoot that happened back in 2017 in West Virginia. Hey Willstar, I've been watching your channel for a while and I figured I'd finally write in. I've gone back and forth on whether to tell anybody about this, but after hearing some of the stories you've covered, I think you'd understand where I'm coming from. I've lived in West Virginia my whole life, been in the woods more than I've been out of them, and I know what's normal out there. But what I saw one summer night back in 2017 at East Lynn Lake still makes the hair on my neck stand up. And I'm sure about what it was. It was a Bigfoot. That evening started like plenty of others. My buddy Robert texted saying the catfish were biting out towards the back end of the lake. He said, "They're stacked up near the bend in Lick Creek. Let's go out for a few hours." It was late July, one of those hot, humid nights where it feels like the air never cools down. I grabbed my rods, a lantern, and a cooler with a few drinks, and I drove out to meet him. If you know that road, you know how the trees hang over it, like a tunnel. You get little flashes of the water between them, but mostly it's like dark hills and that feeling that the woods are right on top of you. When I pulled up, Robert was already there tying catfish rigs on his tailgate. We talked for a little bit about work and stuff, and then we headed out down towards the lake. We walked down the same steep path we always use. It's got roots sticking out like steps, and it drops fast down towards the bank. At the bottom, there's this little flat area right at the bend in the lake. It's a good spot. Deep water close to shore, and enough brush for cover. We set up our rods, clipped the bells on, lit the lantern, and got to fishing. For the first hour or so, it was perfect. The frogs were going off down in the shallows, the crickets were loud, and the lake was smooth as glass. Every once in a while, a fish would splash. We caught a couple of nice channel cats and threw them on our stringer. If you ever fished at night, you know that quiet, content feeling where everything just settles down. Then, all at once, the woods went dead silent. Not slowly. It was like someone flipped a switch. No frogs, no crickets, no nothing. I remember the sound of Robert's chair creaking suddenly being way too loud. He looked over at me and said, "Do you hear that?" And I said, "I don't hear anything." And that's exactly what scared me. I've been in the woods when things quiet down because of a bear or coyote, but that night was different. The air felt heavy, like before a storm, but the sky was clear other than a few clouds rolling in and out. I kept telling myself there was probably a big animal nearby, and that's why everything shut up. Then a noise came from across the cove. It sounded like a low moan, then rose up into this long, drawn-out howl that just hung over the water. It had weight behind it. You could tell whatever made that noise was big, the kind of sound you feel in your chest. It echoed back and forth in the hollers like thunder. That sound was not a coyote. I've heard them 1,000 times. Coyotes have that high chattering pack sound. This was one voice, deep, long, and powerful. When it stopped, another one answered from further up the ridge, shorter and sharper, like a whoop. That second one sounded mad. Robert looked at me, and I could see the same thought on his face that was running through my mind. This was not normal. I didn't even want to say the word Bigfoot out loud because it felt stupid to say it. But deep down, that's exactly what I was thinking. A few seconds later, we heard footsteps, heavy ones. Not fast, not running, just steady, like something walking with purpose. Crunch, crack, crunch. I know what deer sounds like, and I know what a person sounds like when moving through the brush. This wasn't either of those. It was far too heavy for a deer, and a person would have had a flashlight or at least made some noise talking or stumbling. This sounded like it had a lot of weight to it. It was moving along the far bank, coming closer, maybe 25 to 50 yards across the water. Robert turned down the lantern down low, almost off, so our eyes could adjust. I remember how quiet everything was except for that movement in the bushes. Then after a few steps, it stopped. I don't know how to explain it, but you could feel that whatever it was had turned and was now focused on us. I couldn't see anything at first, just the outline of trees and brush. Then the moonlight broke out from the clouds and hit the opposite shore. That's when I saw it. At first, it looked like a huge dark stump against the tree line. Then it moved. It shifted its weight and the shape separated from the background. It was standing upright, broad across the top with shoulders like you wouldn't believe. The upper half looked like it was wearing a coat made of shadows. Then I realized that the rough edge was hair. It was tall. Even from across the cove, I could tell it had to be 7 or 8 feet easy. So I hurried up and quickly got my flashlight out of my tackle box that I keep in there, because we night fish a lot. It's one of those torch ones that you can see really far. When I put the flashlight beam on the Bigfoot, I could see it clear as day. The head sat low between those shoulders, and the arms hung down almost to its knees. It didn't move fast or jerk around like an animal. It was steady. Then the smell hit us. God, I can still remember it. It smelled like a wet dog mixed with something rotten, like garbage and swamp mud and sweat all at once. It was strong enough to make me gag. Robert said, "You smell that?" And I just nodded, keeping my eyes on it. That smell wasn't drifting in from somewhere else. It was coming from that thing right across the water. The hair looked dark, almost black, with lighter patches, like it had been sun-bleached in spots. You could see where leaves and little bits of debris were stuck in it. That's what really got me. It looked natural, not like some clean costume or anything like that. This thing lived out there. Its shoulders were huge, its chest was wide, and I could see it breathing. Slow, deep breaths that moved its whole torso. When one arm swung a little, I saw the hand. Not a paw, a hand, fingers and a thumb, big and thick. That's when my stomach dropped. Whatever this was, it was not a bear. It turned its head a little, and I saw the side of its face. The brow was heavy, and the eyes were set deep under it. When the light hit them, they reflected like an amber glow, not like a flashlight beam, just that dull shine you see in animals' eyes when light catches them. They were facing forward, not off to the sides like a deer. The nose looked flat, wide across the bridge, and the mouth was just a straight line under it. I saw the jaw muscles shift when it breathed. There were shorter hairs around the face and thicker hairs along the sides, almost like a beard blending into the rest of it. It stood there for a few seconds that felt like forever. Then it let out this low, rumbling growl. I could see the chest move when it did it. The growl rolled across the water and turned into a roar that hit me so hard I actually felt it in my chest. The sound was so deep and loud it felt like it made the air tremble. Robert jumped back like he'd been shocked, and the sound bounced off the hills and came right back at us. It wasn't a bluff sound, it wasn't scared, it was a warning. Robert grabbed the lantern and the tackle box and he said, "I'm leaving right now." I didn't even argue. I snatched up one of my rods, left the other, and started backing up the trail. We were trying to move quick without falling, but that hill feels twice as steep in the dark. Behind us, I heard it take a few heavy steps, each one loud enough to make branches pop, and then another roar, shorter than the first, but just as powerful. It felt like it was shoving us up the hill with that sound alone. I didn't look back. I couldn't. We just climbed. My legs were burning by the time we hit the gravel at the top. Roger dropped the tackle box. His hands were shaking and fumbling the keys. I kept staring at the mouth of that trail, waiting for it to come up after us, but it didn't. We tore out of there without saying a word. I didn't sleep much that night. I just sat on my porch replaying it over and over. The next few days, I tried to make sense of it. I thought about maybe going back in the daylight just to see the spot again, and eventually I did, a week later. I parked in the same turnout and walked down the same trail in the middle of the day. In the sunlight, it looked peaceful, like it had never happened. Birds were chirping, water lapping on the bank, but down by the mud where we'd been fishing, I saw two big, deep impressions. They weren't clean footprints, but they were spaced too far apart to be mine or Roger's. I measured them with my boot. Each was longer and wider by several inches, and the distance between them was a stride I couldn't match without stretching. Across the cove where that thing had stood, I noticed a small maple twisted about 5 feet up the trunk. Not broken, not bent, but twisted like someone had grabbed it and wrung it out until its fibers split. I tried twisting it myself, but it didn't move. That was the moment I stopped trying to come up with another explanation. No man could twist that tree like that, and no man could make a sound like that roar. A few days later, I ran into one of the park rangers at the gas station. We got to talking, and I mentioned being out there at night. He just kind of smiled and said, "You hear anything out there weird?" I said, "Yeah, something like that." He nodded and said, "Yeah, you and a few others." Then he walked out. That told me everything I needed to know. People have seen and heard things out here for years. They just don't talk about it. Since that night, I still fish, but I don't stay out late anymore. As soon as the shadows start climbing the ridge, I'm packing up. I can't shake that memory. I've hunted and fished in a lot of places, and I've run into plenty of wildlife. Nothing has ever made me feel like that thing did, like I wasn't the one in charge out there. I've tried to be logical. I've looked at every possible explanation, but nothing fits. The way it stood, the way it moved, the smell, the size, the sound, every part of it adds up to one thing. I don't care if people laugh. I know what I saw, and it was a Bigfoot. You can call it whatever name you want. Wild man, Sasquatch, Yeti, whatever, but it's real. It's out there in those hills. And if anyone ever tells you they don't exist, tell them to sit on the bank at Eastland Lake after dark and wait. They'll find out soon enough. Once again, Willstar, thank you for what you're doing. I know there's a lot of Bigfoot channels out there, but in my opinion, yours is the best around. God bless you and your family, and keep doing what you're doing. Jeremy.
So you're out there night fishing with your buddy on a lake, trying to catch some catfish. Nice summer night, full moon, couple clouds in the sky. All of a sudden you hear a howl, well, a moan and then a howl. And then it's answered by another one across the way. And then all of a sudden a Bigfoot walks out of the tree line and checks you out and looks right at you. And you take it as a warning that he wants you to get the hell out of there. What would you do? You hanging out? Or are you going to have to get out of there? I'm gonna get out of there. All right, so I guess that's where we're gonna leave it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. If you're not getting notified, make sure you turn that bell notification for all. Or actually turn it off first and then turn it back on for all. Another thing, if you're watching on mobile, make sure you turn on your mobile notifications. I'm getting a lot of subscribers telling me they're not getting notified for my videos. I think what's happening is it had been so long since I had put out videos, the YouTube just said, well, we're not gonna notify anybody because he's not putting any videos out. But I'm putting out a lot of videos now, so hopefully the algorithm will pick me up and you guys will start getting notified again. But if you're not, like I said, turn that bell notification off, then turn it back on for all, and that should handle it. That's where we're gonna leave it. Always remember, where there is a Willstar, there is definitely a way, and Willstar is out.